Good morning, Mike check. Fitness Athlete Friday. Welcome back to PT on Ice. My name is Dr. Mitch. I'm here in Fenton, Michigan at my home gym, CrossFit Two-Way Bar West. By the way, if you're ever in the Genesee County area, we're in Fenton, Michigan, which is 20 minutes outside of Flint, 40 minutes outside of Ann Arbor. If you're flying in or you're around for the weekend, hit us up, drop in for a workout, be a good time. If you're watching live, you are up in my treatment office, which I like to call the bird's nest. So you live viewers get to get a little glimpse of my bird's nest up here. You can see the gym floor down there. I get to see where everything goes on and hear the loud music when it's rocking up here and I got clients. So we're here in the office in the gym. We're talking Fitness Athlete, and usually we're talking our classic CrossFitter, right? We're that age group of 20 to 45 training CrossFit programs 4 to 6 times a week, and they're coming to see you for overuse type injuries, right? That's the general demographic of what we usually talk about when we say fitness athletes. Today I want to take it in a little different direction and talk about the youth fitness athlete. And you can call this CrossFit. It's what I'm most familiar with. It's what I'm most exposed to. But a variety of general physical preparedness programs for youth athletes, and having this discussion around why they're important and kind of dispelling some myths, maybe preconceived notions around youth and training, sport training rather. And what we can really be doing in our communities as far as promoting good, healthy behaviors. And I think this is super important because when we step back and being so blessed to be a part of the APHPT community and listening to the discussions and the work that's going on and really changing health behaviors in this country, we need to do a better job of starting with our youth. If we don't get it right at the time kids are young, it's much harder to reverse that wheel and start it in a different direction later on in life than if we just expose people to it at a young age and they just don't know any different. The most common thing I hear from people who love CrossFit at a later date is they always say, I wish I would have found it sooner. I wish I would have had this stuff back when I was in middle school, back when I was in high school. I would have learned to like training. I would have learned to like working on my fitness and finding this healthy life. And man, what a confidence booster that would have been for me, when I was going through some really dark years of wearing, black jeans and eyeliner. That's not me, I swear. But listen, this is the stuff that we can start with our youth and really change the trajectory of health outcomes long term if we get it right at an early age. So I want to examine a few key points as far as training for the youth athlete, and the first one is the health behaviors, like we talked about. We have an exercise deficit disorder going on with our youth, right? And the research is telling us this is starting at the earliest ages of like 6. By the time kids are 6, they are already the wheels are already slowing down when they should just be revving up at that point. We're already starting to give them iPads and iPhones and shuck them off in the corner and sit still, don't make any noise kind of thing. And recess is already starting to get pulled out of schools, and in the high school community, gym class is the first to get cut when schools are on a deficit or they're behind on the financial burden. That's the movement is the first thing to come out, and we're seeing it at the earliest age of 6 years old with this exercise deficit disorder. And if you think it's just having an effect on the physical self, you're wrong. Our cognitive self is paying the price as well. Kids are not functioning cognitively as well as they could be if they had more physical activity in their life. What we know is that childhood obesity right now is on a tear, and these are outdated statistics, but we know that it's doubled in kids and it's quadrupled in adolescents in just the last 30 years. We know that kids ages 2 to 19 are at the 95th percentile of BMI, right? They're off the spectrum. Ages 2 to 19, that percentage is 17% now, right? And it's getting out of control. And it takes a community, right? It takes a community to raise your kids. It takes a community to keep them healthy as well. So it needs programs like this. It just can't all fall on the school district, or it can't all fall on the volunteer baseball coach to solve these health problems. It takes a community of us, of how we're going to instill good programs that keep kids moving and keep kids training and keep kids flourishing, really, both cognitively and physically. We know that fit kids do better on cognitive tests. We know that kids who have exercise exposure, moderate to vigorous exercise, do better on cognitive focused tasks and executive function tasks, right? We know that there's a carryover right after exercise as well with this brain-derived neurotrophic factor, where kids do a lot better on executive function type tasks immediately following exercise. So we should be leveraging exercise on a day-to-day basis when our kids are struggling, not just with depression or not just with their physical confidence, but with math, right? With their science class, when they're struggling with their work, we should be utilizing exercise and physical activity to try to upregulate some cognitive function and help that individual out, because the research is very, very strong in this regard. What we know in a study published in 2011, I want to read this off to you, is that 20 children aged 8 to 10 participated in 9-month intervention to improve their fitness and their VO2 as measured by their VO2 max. As their fitness went up, so did their performance on cognitive tests and certain brain waves. This isn't just hearsay. This isn't just you should get your kids moving. This is fact of what we're studying and seeing the outcomes come out. Get kids moving. They do better in school. They do better in life, right? So it's important to set healthy behaviors, getting them in a program where they build a healthy relationship, a positive association with exercise and with getting fitter, and not just a punishment, not just we run when we do bad in sport, so I hate running. A lot of us can relate to that sentiment. Or, punished with conditioners in basketball practice, well, when we're not running the play correctly, right? They build a more positive association with exercise at a young age that they can carry forward with them throughout a healthy lifestyle from that point forward. The other point that I want to make is physical literacy, right? A youth fitness athlete program, a youth CrossFit program, a training program outside of sport can help to build physical literacy in our kids. And what does that mean? It means that individual can complete moves and physical challenges with poise. They can do it with a level of economy, right? They're efficient at doing so, and they can do it with confidence in a physically challenging environment, right? They have options. They have variability at their disposal, right? And so when things come up, they're more used to, they have been trained, they have been exposed to different positions. When the realities of sport hit, when an individual is required to jump, cut, turn, to avoid a tackle, they've been exposed to lunging. They've been exposed to squatting. They know how to center and raise or lower and raise their center of mass, rather. They have a level of physical literacy from having gone through programs that focus on those fundamental movement patterns: the squat, the deadlift, the press, jumping, landing, running. They're exposed to that outside of the domains of their sport, so that when we call upon those domains inside of sport and athletic development, they're there, right? When we look at, and this is what I really like, I always like to steal stuff from Greg Glassman, the founder of CrossFit, but he's got the theoretical hierarchy of the development of an athlete, the pyramid, right? And at the bottom of the pyramid is nutrition, right? We have to start with a sound foundation of meats and vegetables and getting the adequate energy into the individual. We have to start with nutrition. But at the bottom of that is metabolic conditioning, or starting with a really good ability to a strong cardiovascular system, right? Being able to breathe and keep producing energy and keep going, right? So we need to be able to train an individual's metabolic conditioning. And then next comes gymnastics, right? Being able to control your own body movement through space, right? And that can be air squats, that can be, push-ups, air squats, pull-ups, right? Starting our individuals with upper body strength, being able to control our own strength. That's really what we're talking about with youth. Can we get them to breathe hard, and can we get them to control their own body in space? If we do that, we're doing a ton of things right. And I think a lot of people get a little hesitant when we say youth training programs, and they immediately think of like 1 rep max deadlifts right away. And we're like, no, I need your kid to be able to run a 400, come in and do box jumps and maybe some walking lunges, and show me a good knee position on both the box jumps and walking lunges, and then go back out and blast 4 more rounds of that and get it done in under 30 minutes. I mean, that's really where we could start with our youth program, not even giving them external loads at this point. Show me that you can breathe hard, show me that you can control your body in space, and then we're going to have a really good foundation to build off of. Next up on that pyramid would come the weightlifting, or the external object, being able to manipulate an external object, weightlifting and throwing, things of that nature. And at the top of that pyramid, the very top of that pyramid should be sport. And what happens is that we flip that pyramid on its head. We get kids into sport by the time that they can walk, before they've ever learned to run, jump, land, twist, sprint, any of these things. We throw them in hockey skates, or we put a baseball glove on their hand, or a golf club in their hand, or and we want to take those videos of our kid, the next Tiger Woods, swing on a golf club at the age of 3, when really they need to be learning how to squat. They need to be learning how to pick up a football off the floor and stand up with it, and doing that a lot of times, right? We get that hierarchy flipped up, we get that pyramid flipped on its head, and we push the sport so heavily at such a young age, before we ever think to develop these fundamental movement patterns, these general physical preparedness skills. strength, speed, agility, coordination, balance, right? Power, endurance. These are the things that the individual needs and then can express those in a sport where they feel strongest at. A lot of times that we step back and we evaluate, we've got that pyramid upside down, we've got it backwards, which brings us to our next point, our third final point, which is injury risk reduction. The benefit of youth training programs is that they can help reduce the injury risk that we see in our youth, and that's through the roof. When we look at UCL injuries in baseball players at the age of 12, right? There's no reason a 12-year-old should be having a UCL done on their throwing arm because they've been throwing all year long. They play in a travel team, and then they play in an indoor league, and then they play on this team, and then they're playing school ball, and then they've thrown out their arm by the time they're 12, and they need their UCL repaired, and they need Tommy John surgery. When we look at ACLs getting blown out in kids at that age, at pre-adolescence, or even in 13, 14 years old, kids that don't know how to jump and land, they don't know how to run, they don't know how to cut, and blowing through their knees at a young age. What general physical preparedness programs can do, what a youth training program can do, is actually reduce those injury risks by getting that athlete still moving, getting that individual still moving, still training, but outside the domains of their sport, which reduces those overall overuse type injuries that we see commonly when a kid is just in sport year long. I think parents are really thinking that they're doing the right job by just keeping their kid pumped full of the sport that they like. But at the end of the day, that's really limiting what they can do long-term, their long-term trajectory as far as health and overall fitness, right? We can reduce those injury risks. And what a lot of folks get hung up on is the potential injury risk of putting their kid into a youth training program. And it's actually just the opposite. More kids, an astronomical more amount of kids are getting hurt in their sport than they are getting hurt in youth training programs. What's actually going on is they're reducing that injury risk, right? We're pulling them out of the sport where they've been throwing for 9 months, and we're not going to have them throw, right? We're going to have them maybe press or pull or squat, and they're going to give that throwing arm, or that, maybe if they're in volleyball, we're going to give that hitting arm a little rest from being overhead so much. Giving them that wide range of skills and drills to be able to work on, and pulling them out of the sport that overuse is what they're used to, it can really reduce those injury risks. Last but not least, I want to focus on a few concerns, right? Because everyone can be gung-ho about, all right, youth training programs are great, but I'm a little hesitant, and rightfully so, right? Because when we're working with kids, we should definitely be taking a step back and moving extremely slow. And kids is on a spectrum, right? How you train a 10-year-old is very different than how you train a 14-year-old, even though that looks like four years gap, and what we wouldn't mind in the development of an adult athlete in 4 years is a big difference in the development of a youth athlete. So the younger they are, obviously loads go out the window, and we're just working on movements, body weight movements, and for good technique. What we always say with CrossFit is that we need mechanics, we need consistency, and then we need intensity. And that intensity piece falls with our load and how fast we're moving that load. But what we need as youth programs is we need to emphasize the mechanics and the consistency hard. You need to move really, really well, and then I will gift you more external load. And primarily with our teens program, that's what I work with. We have a teens program here anywhere from 13 to 18. You need to show me that you can move really, really well, really consistently over a number of weeks, over a number of months before we give you more load on the bar. Because at that age, it's repetition that individual gets stronger with. It's not so much loading it on the bar. There's so much neuromuscular adaptation going on at that age. There's so much of this is cognitive and neuromuscular that it's not so much, I need 10 more pounds on the bar. I need 10 more pounds on the bar. It's I need more reps. I need more touches, and I need it to look really, really good. And so the concerns about loading really falls back on the concerns about a good coach. Find someone who's skilled in the athletic development of a youth athlete, right, that can progress them properly and slowly, make sure that they're using good movement patterns and not using too much external load too soon, and kind of continue that development throughout their adolescence and throughout their youth, and set them up for success down the road. The other big concern that people always have is, man, I think lifting weights for kids is bad. It's going to stunt their growth. And if you're still speaking that, at the end of the day, it's just been largely discredited by modern sports science. I don't know of anyone that I ran into like, wow, that individual looks really stunted. They must have lifted weights when they were in 7th grade. And they're like, yeah, I for sure did. I bench pressed once, and now my arms have never grown again. Like this just doesn't happen. It's just it's a myth that's been perpetrated for years. It's simply not the case. What we need to emphasize is the point that I made, that they move really well, and that they move really consistently. And then they can continue getting more load over time, and they can earn that load. It's just not going to, I give them a barbell and all of a sudden they've stopped growing and they're going to be 4'7" for the rest of their life. That's just simply not how things work. So I think there's some really good stuff here, guys. I think we can go out as physical therapists. We can team up with a local high school. We can team up with a local gym, training facility, and we can go in with our knowledge of being like, hey, we got to get some youth programs going in here. These are some things that we need to set up. We need them to move really well. We need them to move really light loads for a lot of repetitions. And then we need to gift them load after they've demonstrated that they can move really well, and build some general physical preparedness, build some fundamental movement patterns so that when they go and they play their sport, they're in a much better position for it. I can tell you from experience that the parents love it. They've been looking for something like this. They want to get their kid into something else outside of their sport, and they just haven't been able to find it. So they were pumped when we offered our teens program. I think if you're in any situation where you can offer something like that, whether it be at your clinic or a gym that you're partnered up with in your community, I think you should really look into options into doing so. So don't discredit the youth fitness athlete. If this was good to you guys, leave a comment, and maybe we can talk later about potential injuries we may see in the youth fitness athlete. We can go down this rabbit hole all you guys want, but I think just introducing the concept of the youth fitness athlete and how we get the ball rolling with them is a good place to start today. So drop a comment, leave us a line, share this episode. Thanks so much for tuning in, and like you guys, I'll be tuning in Monday morning for the next PT on Ice. So have a good weekend, guys. Take care.